Hot Mike with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
No. I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. It was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mike.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something. Is
Hot Mike. Hot Mike. On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo. Dom Izzo.
Good Tuesday morning. Happy Valentine's Day to those that celebrate, and welcome to a day before the blizzard edition of Hot Mike on WDAY Extra and InForum.com. The literal calm before the storm, as you can tell from our power cams outside, but it's going to get nasty as our day goes on. So much so that there are already some sporting events in our part of the world that are getting moved around, including our game of the week for tonight. Now is a matinee. For those that are looking forward to watching or attending, we'll give you an early heads up here. The Moorhead boys hockey game that is coming up later here on Extra now is a 3:45 start from the Moorhead Sports Center. The next to last game of the regular season for the Spuds, and potential section preview as these two teams want to play against one another. It'll now be a 3:45 start for the Rams and Moorhead. So for those wondering, we will still bring you the game. It's an earlier start. Was originally supposed to be played a few weeks ago. Now it's been moved to a 3:45 start. So I think we have a graphic on that. Hopefully we'll be able to bring that up for people later on in the show that are watching on television. But again, Spuds, Rams, 3:45 this afternoon on WDAY Extra, as that's the final home game for Moorhead. They'll play their finale on Saturday against Hill Murray, and that'll wrap up the regular season for them. So, again, if there are any other updates with weather and sporting events, we'll keep you posted on that. It's a big night. Postseason hockey in North Dakota begins today. The WDA and EDC tournaments are officially underway. EDC, of course, at home sites for the quarterfinals tonight. There are 4 games here. Then everyone moves on to Grand Forks for the elimination rounds that begin on Friday, and, of course, the EDC Championship on Saturday. So plenty to do there. We'll preview the state wrestling tournament coming up tomorrow on the show, which will be it's a huge deal, as always, at the Fargo Dome that begins on Thursday. Of course, they've changed the format of this over the last couple of years, where now you have the individual tournament going on Thursday and Friday and the dual tournament on Saturday, with the girls tournament in there as well. It's always one of my favorite events, and we'll get into that properly coming up on the show tomorrow. So look forward to that. Lots to get to today, including baseball deciding to rip things up with past and tradition, which they have done quite a bit for this upcoming baseball season. And the Ghost Runner is here to stay. So we'll discuss that coming up later on in the show. Also, is Carson Wentz once again on the move? I think we all imagined that anyway after how things ended in Washington. Now it may be official, as the NFL offseason can really kick into high gear today, as it will with at least the first of, I would imagine, many quarterbacks on the move, not only with Carson Wentz, but with Derek Carr. We'll discuss that coming up on our show this morning. But let's recap what we saw late last night. The Wolves and the Wild both playing, as we chatted about on what to watch when we wrapped up yesterday's show. These games down the stretch here, and I say down the stretch, and I know we're in the middle of February, but it is going to be the grinder here for the next 2 months for each of these teams, considering where they are in the standings. Let's start with the Wolves facing off against Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. And yes, there was a wedding last night at the Mavs-Wolves game. Talking about Valentine's Day, why wouldn't you get married at halftime of a basketball game? The Wolves played pretty well to start, and Edwards did his thing. Kyrie, alley-oop there down low. Mavs, by the way, wearing their tremendous throwbacks. Love that. Edwards, who's now heading to the NBA All-Star game. He should have been there anyway with the 3. The Wolves build a 14-point lead at one point. Knock another one down. Again, up 14 late in the first half. Nice there on the pick and roll as Gobert slams it home. Well, I'm watching, and the Wolves are in cruise control. They're up by 16. But, of course, it is the NBA. Teams don't want to come back. McDaniels hits a three here for the Wolves to make him up 13. Now the lead, though, is down to 5. It's 118-113. That's a tough shot there from Edwards to drive and score. Wolves go up by 7. But, of course, Dallas isn't done. The kick out of the three here to knock this down. This Kyrie will make this a 2-point game, and everyone's going crazy in Dallas under 30 seconds to go. The end of this game is mind-numbing. There's 14 seconds left. The Mavs are down 3. Neither Luka or Kyrie will get a shot off as the Wolves come up with the ball, and Minnesota beats Dallas 124-121 is the final, and a monster win for the Timberwolves. An exciting game last night as they get the road win and beat a team ahead of them in the conference standings. We'll take a look here at the final totals in this one, and it was an impressive win for the Wolves last night. They get to 2 games over 500 now at 31-29 on the season. And Edwards did his thing last night, which he needed to, 32 points in a monster performance for him. Rudy Gobert has 21 and 14, exactly what they needed there. Conley hit some big shots. He had 3 threes last night, had 12 points and 9 assists. Exactly why you trade for a guy like that. Luka had 33. Kyrie had 36. But not enough there for Dallas as the Wolves move with the victory, now a half game behind the Mavericks in the Western Conference standings. So as we now get ready for the NBA All-Star break, here are the up-to-date standings now in the Western Conference on this Valentine's Day, where the Mavs are in 5th, the Clippers are tied with them, then New Orleans, they're the Wolves, then Golden State and the Jazz wrap up the top 10 spots with Portland just on the outside. Look at him. It is fascinating to see this play out, and that's why you get a win like that. Huge deal. And we talked about this. The Wolves have 1 game left before the NBA All-Star break. That'll be Thursday night. They play the Wizards at Target Center. But that stretch that we talked about a couple weeks ago here, they finished with a mark of 3-2. Not great, but over 500. They beat Denver, then lost to the Nuggets, won at the Jazz, lost at Memphis, and beat Dallas. So you take that. And then out of the break here, after the Wizards game Thursday, you've got the Hornets, bad. But the Wolves will struggle with bad teams. At Golden State, that'll be tough. At the Clippers, at the Lakers, at the Kings. And that takes us to the first week of March. So that's a big win. You hope now, can you build on that momentum? You're going home. You got to get Thursday. You got to beat teams like Washington at home if you're really a top 10 playoff team. As it stands right now, they would be in the play-in tournament again for the second year in a row. This time, though, they'd be on the road, and they'd have the luxury. If they were to lose that game, they'd still have another game to try to get in into the playoffs as the 8th seed. So, big win last night. Exciting game for the Wolves. Equally as exciting was going on at XL Energy Center. The Minnesota Wild, who finally won a game on Saturday. They beat the Devils, hosting the Florida Panthers last night in a game that was tight throughout. And again, the Wild, right now, it is like an act of Congress for them to score goals. They've got that guy, which is still stunning to me that it's hard for them to score, as Kaprizov with an absolute wired shot to the roof there. That tied the game up at 1. Panthers had their chances in this game. This is a tough play here, and this is a not great. Marcus Foligno, who's one of the Wild top players, goes down, blocks a shot here, did not return after taking that one off the knee, and you could tell that one did not feel great. Panthers think they scored here, but immediately it is waved off as they had a two-man advantage, and you'll see why. As the elbow to Gustafson's head, you can't do that, by the way. That waved off the goal, so it remains 1-1. Still 1-1 in the third. Wild trying to create some magic here as Kaprizov got in, but then a whole Donnybrook ensued after that. Just you're not going to mess with the Wild's best player and not think there's some sort of retaliation going to happen. This Panthers team is good, too. Remember, they won their division last year in the NHL before they got beat by Tampa in the second round of the playoffs. Now in overtime, Wild think they got a chance to win. That's a fantastic save there to keep this game tied. Sergei Bobrovsky was the goaltender for the Panthers with an absolute rob there. Had 27 saves. This game had a chance to end here. Gustafsson makes a save, then pile drive into the net. Again, like I mentioned with the Wolves game, went end-to-end here, had a chance to win for each team. So it goes to a shootout, which, again, you can say what you will. That's a great goal there from Alexander Barkov, to give the Panthers the lead. So Freddie Gaudreau has to score or the Panthers will win the game, and Bobrovsky comes up with a save, and the Panthers will get the extra point here as they beat Minnesota 2-1, the final in the shootout. And again, at this time of the year, you cannot give away any points. I know it's against a team from the Eastern Conference, but if you're the Minnesota Wild, you need as many points as you could get. So the shootout loss, they dropped to 28-20-5 on the season. And again, the goals just continue to be an issue for the Wild. So now the up-to-date standings here in the Western Conference. The Wild still hold the final playoff spot in the Central Division with 61 points. But again, there's Colorado. And by the way, the Wild play the Avalanche coming up on Wednesday night in St. Paul, with Colorado just 1 point behind them, then Nashville, and then St. Louis. As the standings go right now, the Wild would play the Jets in the opening round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Not great. But either way here, even if they fall to the wild card spot, likely they're playing Dallas. Calgary has that spot right now. They have the same amount of points as the Wild at 61, with Edmonton at 65. So those are the up-to-date look at right now where would things stand if the Stanley Cup playoffs are to begin today. The NHL trade deadline is coming up. I'll just say this about the Wild before we set up our show for the day. Scoring goals has become a real issue for this team out of the All-Star break. Because going into the break, played well. They beat the Flyers, beat the Sabres, and then since then, 2 goals against Arizona, 1 goal against Dallas, 1 goal against Vegas, 2 goals against New Jersey, and a goal against Florida. My rudimentary math says that's 7 goals in 5 games. That ain't going to win many hockey games. And now you got Colorado coming in on Wednesday. Last time I checked, the Avalanche has some guys that can put the puck in the net. That's a nationally televised game, by the way. That's going to be on TNT on Wednesday. So, busy night of flipping the clicker there if you wanted to watch what the Wild and the Wolves were doing, which, by the way, we'll get into on the show later this week on the whole Bally Sports debacle, which is about to really hit Twins fans in the face when the baseball season gets set to start. So there's your recap of what we saw last night. Fun show coming up for you here today. We got our usual cavalcade of Tuesday guests. Mike McFeely will be by in just a few minutes at 9:35 as we get ready for the final 2 weeks of the Summit League basketball season. A lot at stake for both the Bison men and the Bison women. Each of them have identical records in conference play. Totally different way of getting there. I think each probably feel a little bit differently about their basketball teams right now. We're going to discuss that coming up at 9:35. Emanuel will be here at 10 o'clock. We'll fully unpack the Super Bowl from how he saw it, and now the NFL offseason underway. The Colts have named a coach. Shane Steichen is the new Indianapolis Colts head coach. The Eagles offensive coordinator taking over in Indianapolis. They've got a decision to make, obviously, at quarterback. There's plenty of teams that are in that mix about who they're going to decide of who's going to lead their team next year. Indianapolis being one of them with a high draft pick as well. We'll discuss that at 10 o'clock. At 10:35, Moorhead girls hockey head coach Ryan Kraft will join us. The Spuds on the doorstep of trying to end a 17-year state tournament drought. Moorhead will face off against Roseau tomorrow in the section championship game in Thief River Falls. The winner goes to the AA state hockey tournament at Xcel Energy Center next week. So we'll preview that coming up at 10:35 as they will try to end a 17 years since the last time the girls from Moorhead have been to the state hockey tournament. So we'll discuss that coming up before we say goodbye. That and a heck of a lot more here on this Tuesday morning. We'll take a break. We come back. Baseball's at it again, tinkering with its rules. We'll discuss that and a lot more when Hot Mike returns after this on WDAY Extra at InForum.com. Then a reminder, we've got boys hockey game of the week coming up this afternoon because of the impending weather. The Roseau-Moorhead game, you'll see it's a 3:45 start this afternoon from the Moorhead Sports Center. It'll be live on WDAY Extra and InForum.com. The finale at home for the Spuds will end the season on Saturday in Hill Murray. We'll wrap up the regular season before the section tournament begins a week from today. ESPN's got a heck of a way of just making me click on something here. The headline of this was stacking all 32 teams from contenders to rebuilds. And under the... this is fun. And the headline, in a comfortable spot despite a losing season, Cleveland is there. Green Bay is there. Stuck in quarterback purgatory, Atlanta, the Raiders, the Saints, and the Jets. Which, by the way, the Jets reached out to see if they could visit with Aaron Rodgers. So, there you go. I'm not saying, I'm reporting the news now. That's the thing. So, I don't know. Derek Carr will be available today. The Raiders have until, was it 3 o'clock Central Time to either exercise their, I think it's $40 million option or release him. Obviously, the Raiders bench Carr at the end of last season, so they're going to move on. And, then he'll be able to sign literally anywhere. He could even do that today. So he could sign. The Saints are obviously a team that he visited with. That seems to be the odds-on favorite if he'll go to New Orleans. But we will wait and see. And then you throw the Raiders back into the mix of teams that need to address the quarterback situation. It's going to be fascinating, and that's why the NFL has this stranglehold on everything, because now even there are no more games. We will not have another football game for another almost 7 months, and yet it will dominate the headlines like nothing else, like literally nothing else. We're in the midst of a great basketball, hockey season. College hoops is now in the time when things are going to be really fun, and everyone's still talking football. That's just the stranglehold it has on the country right now. I'm not going to talk about it. We will if anything breaks, but I do want to talk some baseball stuff because pitchers and catchers are reporting this week. The Twins will be reporting on Thursday. By the way, one schedule note, because I had a couple of people ask, Dick Bramer will be back with us on Hot Mic each and every Wednesday, starting on March 22nd, I believe, will be his first appearance on our show, so that's pretty cool stuff. It'll be his, I think, fifth year with us doing the show. So, and I believe it's right before his first spring training broadcast. The Twins put that out yesterday of when they'll be simulcasting games with radio for the most part. And then I think 3 games will be exclusively on TV that Dick and Justin Morneau will be calling. So he'll be back with us beginning on March 22nd from Fort Myers as the Twins get ready to begin the 2023 season. Now, with that said, baseball and its infinite wisdom, and there's going to be plenty of changes this year. We got a pitch clock. We've got how many times you can throw over to first. We've got no more shifts. All that's coming this year. Also, what we've got coming again, and it's not going anywhere, is the extra inning games with the ghost runner on second base. Yesterday, baseball and its competition committee voted to make it permanent that in all regular season extra inning games, A runner will be placed on second base to begin the 10th inning, and in every subsequent extra inning after that until a winner is determined. Commissioner Rob Manfred intimated all winter the rule return in 2023. This is something that came about during the pandemic season in 2020 to shorten games up, to protect pitchers' arms, is what they told us. Then they brought it back last year because of the shortened spring training, because of the lockout, and now it's permanent. I can tell you, and we can go back and look at the tape when they introduced this, that I hated it because there's part of me that loves the 15-inning games and 16-inning games, but too often the next day or days after, you had rotations that were just destroyed from using guys in those long of games. Under the new guidelines, leading teams have to be up by 10 or more runs in the ninth inning to let a position player pitch, but trailing teams can use a position player anytime they are down by 8 or more runs. That's also a new rule. Position players are also allowed to pitch anytime in extra innings. This is according to Elias Sports Bureau research. There were 132 instances of position players pitching in 2022, up from 32 5 years ago. That tells you exactly what managers are doing now. When you're getting boat raced, they're going to use a guy who's normally a left fielder to come in and save the arms. Players had concerns as statistics were beginning to be dramatically affected by so many position players pitching. Both rules, by the way, passed unanimously, sources told ESPN, about not only the extra inning rule, but the position player rule. We've had it for a couple years, and I know we visited with Bramer about this, that you've seen games, and those were highlights of Twins extra inning games last year they were playing, that it adds certainly a level of excitement to the game. Obviously, the games are getting done sooner, which everybody's a fan of, not most notably the players, people in the stands, people watching on television, absolutely. And which is all about baseball's about now, is getting the games done as quick as possible. Not about its unbelievable heritage and history with it. That's, as much as I love that, it almost ties the game down, if that makes sense, because it's an anchor around the game's neck to some, because just the attention span is not there. We know when we watch a basketball game or a hockey game or a football game, we know exactly when it's going to end. We know when the clock runs out. Obviously, there's overtime, and heck, football even has in the regular season, they only have 10 minutes, so you better get it done with or we're going to have a tie. Baseball, which was great, that you could play and play and play. And if we didn't have a winner, we're going to go to the 18th. We'll go to the 19th. I actually went to a minor league baseball game that went 21 innings. 21. We were there till 2 o'clock in the morning, if I remember right. The Syracuse Chiefs were playing the Toledo Mud Hens. Good old International League game. There was no way I was leaving that game. None. My buddies, no way. We had sat through the 12th, through the 14th, through the 17th. Like, no way. This is history here. But we are not the demographic that baseball is aiming at anymore. I'm certainly not, because I'll watch regardless. Now, I will sit here and tell you, my favorite team last year, the Mets, were involved in a handful of extra inning games, had the base runner on, and won. I'm not going to complain about that. I don't think any fan would. But it's part of how different the game is. The not allowing the shift anymore is going to be so dramatic. So dramatic. The pitch clock is going to be a deal. So much is going to be different when we see our first baseball game here in not too distant future. Heck, the World Baseball Classic is coming up. That's going to start all of this here in about a month's time, a little under a month. And we get our first look at spring training games. And when the games actually start to count, it's going to be different. This was a subtle, like, we're going to get this one in because we're trying to save, quote-unquote, pitchers' arms during the pandemic, and then lo and behold, now it's become permanent here 3 years later. I think the owners of the game understand where they're at. Players certainly do. And it might be hypocritical because I was talking last week about either adapting in Class B basketball or die. Baseball has that motto. I mean, it's not even close. That the old adage of playing games with bunts, sacrifices, get on base, advance the runner over, those are donezo. It does not happen anymore. Now, am I a huge fan of the endless pitching changes that happen? No. That's another rule that's come in now, that you've got to have a guy has got to pitch to 3 batters before he can take them out. I think that's the Terry Francona rule, because he would change guys left and right, literally, depending on who was up to bat. If you were to go back and watch a game even from 15 years ago, you probably wouldn't recognize what the game is then to certainly what it is now. And this is part of that. Does it get games done quicker? I mean, yes, but at what cost? Are we losing the greatness of a game going that long? Now, granted, this is only regular season. It is not postseason. That remains untouched. You still got to get on base before you can score the game-winning run in extra innings. But for the regular season, if you're playing a game on May 18th, it's like the Angels are playing, I don't know, the Athletics on a West Coast start at, so when it's, let's say it's 12:05 Central Time, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, let's wrap this puppy up. It's now permanent part of the game. That'll happen starting this year, along with everything else that baseball's throwing at us. So we'll see when the games start here in the not-too-distant future. I was against it, but again, you're allowed to evolve an opinion. I'm okay with it now. I'm not a huge fan of it. I get it. So I'm okay with it. I'm not a fan. I'm just saying I'm okay with it going forward. We'll break here. We come back. Mike McFeely will be by in studio. Lots to digest. Summer League basketball race is a couple weeks left in it. Who's going to be the 2 seed to the 10 seed? We have no idea. We'll discuss that when Hot Mike returns on a Tuesday morning after this.
I have seen the future, and he was wearing number 5, and I ain't talking about Robbie Grimsley, folks.
Took out the muffins, took out the trail mix, took out the cookies. They stole the monster cookies.
You good? Okay.
Is there a reason why I'm out of the shot?
Look at that.
Isn't that great? Old man yells.
Baseball sucks. These kids today.
Right? Well, that's a perfect segue after I was hammering baseballs. Doesn't look like the game that you or I played when we grew up.
But, okay, I'm an old man, okay? So I approach everything
through that lens?
Through that lens. And I go, I know that I'm an old man or getting to be an old man. And I'm trying to not be the guy that says, oh, back in my day. Because I hate that.
Yep.
Whether it's sports, whether it's political, whether it's anything, technology. It's like, back when I was a kid.
Right, yeah.
Kurt Gowdy was awesome, but it was 50 years ago. Yeah. Baseball was a different game back when I was a kid.
God, it was the game.
Yeah, and right? It was the game, and it was just a different game the way it was played, okay? But when you're making up rules and just like bringing in like schoolyard stuff to try to appeal to a sliver of people, and then you have a completely different rule for the postseason. What are we doing here?
I know.
You are what you are. You are what you are.
Isn't there some appeal to playing beyond like the 15, 16 inning game? I don't know if you've ever been to one of those games.
Yes, I have. I was down at the Twins game a couple of years ago that went like 20 innings.
That's right, yeah.
I got out of there at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was fun. It was like, that was different.
Yeah.
Wow, that was something. And it happens once in a generation, every couple of years. And if a ball game goes 11 innings or 12 innings, oh no, the pitcher's arms might fall off. Oh, Yeah. So the pitchers of modern baseball who are among the most conditioned, scientifically perfect athletes in the history of sports, right? I mean, they measure everything now. Yep. And if you're into it, if you're not, Bartolo Colon, sucking down beers and eating, hot dogs or whatever Bartolo, and he lasted, by the way, 20 years.
Okay.
But if you're one of these guys who's they've got all the sensors on you and they're doing all this stuff and I mean, this is a science. This is not, I'm going to go out and haul a log in Siberia to get ready for a prize fight. This is science. If a guy can't pitch an extra inning or two, which they can, it doesn't, you have the most finely tuned athletes with the greatest medical science at their disposal, and they're worried about a pitcher pitching an extra 15 pitches. None of it makes any sense.
No, and that's just not how the game is managed anymore. It's all about analytics on that.
And all of that is fine, okay? I mean, even the idea, I heard you talking about how the rule where they have to come in and face 3 batters.
Yes.
What? And it's all just made up. It's like, people are mad because they're changing pitchers too much. Okay, you have to face 3 hitters.
And now,
why? I mean, if the game has evolved, rightly or wrongly, if it's evolved to the point where it's all about matchups and analytics and
who's
numbers,
facing
and
who.
it's not about John McGraw going, I got a gut feeling that this guy's going to get a hit, whatever.
Right.
All right. It's not that anymore. So if that's what the game is, then you're gonna save the game by going, you have to face 3 batters because that seems like it's a good thing to do.
And now they're now they're forbidding a certain kind of defense,
right,
as well. So you can't put 3 guys on this side of the infield.
You could end the shift in one game if your guy just
hits the ball the
like
other
this.
way.
Went like this. See this
or that?
Go like this.
Good bunt.
There. Okay. There. Shift is off. Nope, because you have to stand up there.
Yep.
And the analytics nerd in the front office says, but if you look at it, it's a 31% chance that if you swing and miss, it's a better outcome than if you bunt because it's 1 base at a time is analytically, if
I know
the game is what it is, and so just that's the game.
And people wonder why nobody's watching
right, you're
anymore,
trying to
by the
make
way.
up all these rules. Okay, you can't stand 6 feet left of third base anymore.
Nope.
Oh, you're too close.
Yeah.
Get over it. I mean,
I know.
You're going to start putting little marks like they have on stages where you.
This is where you have to be.
Like the Broadway stage, they have pieces of tape where the actors stand.
Here's your mark.
Okay,
Yeah.
and put up. Stick one of those things you screw into the ground for your dog. Put that at shortstop, and then put the leash on the shortstop's belt, and say you can't go anything past this leash.
That's it.
Because that's against the rules. And by the way, when the left-hander's up, you have to take 3 steps.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
I don't know.
It's so stupid. Just play. If the game is what the game is, and if it's obsolete, it's obsolete.
I'm convinced the commissioner hates baseball. I don't think he's a baseball fan. I know he's working for the owners, and the owners clearly want this.
Yeah.
But what
because
baseball fan is crying for
by
this?
the way, there's nobody more in touch with what young people want than a bunch of 75-year-old white billionaires.
Right.
There's nothing.
No.
I mean, it's just whatever. It's just stupid. Oh, and by the way, you're not going to be able to watch games on TV.
I was going to say, we'll get to that.
Okay,
right,
so, I mean, I know that you're television-centric and your whole life is, your sports world is how it relates to TV and vice versa, which I understand.
It's kind of important what I do.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you sure are important. So you're going to have 12 teams now with the Bally Sports Network declaring bankruptcy and going dark. You're going to have 12 major league teams that don't have any quote unquote over the air. I call it that. It's not the right term. Linear TV.
Linear TV options. Correct.
Right. I mean, so, okay. Is that maybe a little more important than whether the shortstop stands 6 feet over here, 8 feet over there? I think maybe it is. especially for old guys like me who are still your core demographic. If I can't turn the television on and see the Minnesota Twins, you know what?
Bye-bye.
Out of sight, out of mind, baby.
Exactly.
And I have been a Minnesota Twins fan / follower / person who I've been to half a dozen 8-10 spring trainings, both as a quote unquote fan and as a writer. If I can't turn on the television and easily watch a Twins game, I don't care.
You're exactly right.
If I am that unimportant to you,
then bye-bye. Yeah.
Then bye.
Yeah.
I don't. Then you're not important to me either.
I don't disagree with that.
If you are going to make me,
if you're going to make it hard for me to watch the game,
if you're going to make me buy a streaming service for $30 a month or whatever it's going to be, I don't care about the Houston Astros 361 days out of the year. I care about them the 4 days they play the Twins or whatever. Okay.
Yep.
I don't want to sign up for another streaming service. I don't want to watch a game on my phone. I don't want to have to fiddle with how do I hook up because I'm old.
Yep.
I'm old. I don't want to have to figure out how to get this to go on there.
To go on my TV.
I just want to go click and watch the game. That's what I want to do. And baseball's going to screw that up. But by God, let's put a runner on second base because there's a game on the West Coast in Anaheim that nobody gives a flying fahuli about outside of California, outside of Southern California. If it's the Angels, it's within a 5-mile radius of Anaheim Stadium. That's who cares about the Angels. And there's 10 million people there, which is fine. But
it's not
we don't want to have those games ending at 2:00 Central. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares in the Midwest. What's happening on the West Coast? It's always been a problem. I used to work in the newspaper desk. You know what kept me there at night until 1:30 in the morning?
The West Coast
I could have been out of there at midnight. I could have been out eating Dwayne's Pizza, drinking beer at 12:01 when I was 24 years old. But you know what I was waiting for?
You're waiting for the West
I was waiting for the West Coast box scores to come in. It's always been a problem. You remember the old newspaper? Was it the National it was called? They started a daily newspaper, a national sports newspaper.
Yep.
All right. They hired Frank DeFord, huge name in sports. They hired all the greatest writers. They did what The Athletic did. They stole all the best writers from all the best daily newspapers, got them together for the National. They're going to have this huge national sports daily newspaper, a daily sports newspaper. It flopped. Went out of business after a year. You know why? They couldn't get the West Coast box scores in, and so they couldn't distribute the paper quickly enough to get it on people's doorsteps in the morning.
Need it,
So it's always been a problem.
So just get rid of them anyway. Just move on. Well, thanks for coming by.
Yeah, okay, we'll see you later. Yep.
Well, it's funny you say that because I talked about this last year, especially with the television angle of it. If everything in sports is making it harder for people to watch anything, let alone baseball. Football's become an issue now. College football has its issues there of trying to
wait till all these leagues go to streaming services.
I mean, the Pac-12 put out a statement. Did you see the Pac-12?
League.
Did you see the Pac-12 put out a statement yesterday on that?
We're really close.
Seems like things are going really well.
We're really
there.
close.
Yeah,
believe us.
That's not good. You're right. Summit League's another one right there.
They remember the Summit League hired a firm to figure out what their media rights are worth. Yeah. Kansas City and Omaha are worth what, $12 each? I don't know, but I mean, the CAA, and we talked about this, I think, last week. The Colonial Athletic Association.
They made a deal.
They made a deal with Flow Sports.
They went back with Flow Sports.
Well, but it's a streaming service,
right?
But they also got their games on CBS Sports, which is a minor. It's a national network, but it has 17 viewers most days. And so the CAA is going to have 22 men's and women's basketball games, I think it is, regular season on CBS Sports, and everything else is going to go on Flow Sports. That's the model. And my guess is that's what the Summit League might be looking at, something like that, because Josh Fenton, the commissioner, has connections to CBS Sports from his old NCHC days. He's trying to figure out a way to get games on national, quote unquote, national TV.
And they need tonnage. They need something to show. Those networks need
inventory.
Games. Right, They need something to have on their network.
And so you're going to have to buy a subscription. it might happen. It might not. You're going to have to buy a subscription to Flow Sports.
Yeah.
Like you have to buy one to ESPN Plus to watch Summit League games or whatever you want to watch.
It's coming.
It is. No, it is.
Yeah, I'd like to get an answer when we go down to Sioux
I just
Falls
saw
in a couple
something
weeks.
on Twitter about the cord cutting now is so
It's huge.
like 74% of people under the age of 25 don't watch linear TV.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what baseball's staring at too, by the way.
Yes.
On that.
Yep.
I mean, the NFL is almost like
An anomaly.
no, yes, but they're like invulnerable to it because people still watch
Yeah.
over the air television
Right,
for the
I mean,
NFL.
right.
But that's the only one. College football to a smaller extent, but the NFL is the only one where they still sit down and flip on either CBS, Fox, ABC, or now ESPN, NBC on their television and watch it that way. That's the only sport that does that. Heck, the NHL went to an exclusive streaming deal with ESPN. All their games are on ESPN Plus.
Yep.
All of them. The NBA's got a major deal coming up here next year. Same thing. Same thing. It's odd. It's just be different, man. It really is.
You know what they should do? They should have an overtime in NBA.
Here we go.
Where they
2-on-2?
It's 2-on-1 or 1-on-2, even better. And it only lasts for 3 possessions.
And you can only be 6'4".
Yes. And if the shot clock is 6 seconds, and they only do it on games that are on Wednesdays and Fridays, and then for the postseason they get rid of it because that'll move it along quicker.
Yes. Let's talk about. We'll take a break. We come back. We'll dive into the Summit League race here with only 4 games left. Who the hell knows who's going to finish second to 10? We'll discuss
South Dakota
that.
State.
Oh, we got it?
Yeah, it's done. They're finishing second.
Your graphics back up to go into break there. We'll be back right after this. All right, back with Mike McFeely here as we wrap up hour 1. So, got 2 weeks left here in the Summer League basketball season. The regular season titles are already clinched on each side. Well, the Oral Roberts has a share of it. They're gonna
get
it,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
They have UND coming up on Thursday at the Mabee Center in Tulsa. But after that, it's still literally 2 through 10 is still up for grabs here. We made a graphic of just the top, the 2nd through 5 of what they have left. The game of who's playing who down the stretch on the men's side here. So the Bison, we know, obviously have games with Kansas City, at Oral Roberts, then they end with St. Thomas and Western. The Jacks right ahead of them might go to Denver, go to Omaha, have Kansas City, and then end the season with Oral Roberts.
That's looking like a 3-1 to meet for the Jacks at minimum.
Okay.
And they'll give Oral Roberts a run in Brookings. And I'm not saying they're going to beat them.
No,
but
it'll be a good game.
It'll be a good ball game. But so if you're looking at the Jacks going 3-1,
that means they got the second
They're going to get
spot.
second, which
Yep.
I think they're going to have it. That's just what they are.
So if the Bison right now are a half game ahead of St. Thomas and Western Illinois, and obviously both those teams come to Fargo, you look at what Western and St. Thomas have left, which includes obviously a game up in Grand Forks, and they have to play one another
Right,
as
they have
well.
to play one another, so one of them is going to take a loss.
Yep.
North Dakota State.
What do you think for the Bison?
I would be when I stop up to practice later today to visit with Dave and some of the players, Dave Richmond, I'm going to implore on them. You might want to throw everything you have in the Kansas City game. If you got some trick plays, if you got some flea flickers, if you got some guy in the bench that's going to be a surprise to the ruse, you might want to go
Throw
after
him in
that
the game,
game and win that.
Yeah.
And then, take the loss to Oral Roberts. Likely, I mean, you're never going to concede a game.
No, but we know what's going to
we
happen.
know what's going to happen there. And then you have 2 very winnable games at home. If the Bison can find some way to go 3-1,
that puts you there.
that puts you at third place.
You're 11-7.
You're going to finish in third place.
Yeah.
If you go 3-1, that's about the best you can do with what you've had to work with this year with the young guys, some injuries, a couple of bad losses. Just such a young team. They're like up and down, doing the roller coaster.
Well, if you were to
thing
go
the
back
whole
and
year.
replay those games, look right behind them in the standings here. That game in Macomb and that game in St. Paul, they lost both of them. Those are two tough
you need
ones.
one of those,
right? And that game in Vermilion,
the
too.
loss to at South Dakota, that was a bad loss. The loss to Kansas City at home,
that was a bad one.
was a bad loss. I mean, those are the 3 that stand out to me. If even if you get one
if you
of
get
those.
one of those, yeah, you're right.
I mean,
and then they played really well in Brookings. I mean,
Yeah.
and SDSU
Yep.
and Mayo went crazy in that
But you
game.
can't expect to
No,
win that one.
that's not one you
If
expect to
NDSU
win.
plays that way the night before, they get the win easily in Vermilion, but
Yes.
they come out just dead. And
Yep.
they had no point guard down in Vermilion.
Yeah.
Both their guys were injured, but they were just awful.
Or you
I thought.
or you do one of those performances in Macomb or St. Paul, you win
Yes.
one of those games.
Yep. But that it's just there's so many what
Yeah.
ifs and wherefores and why nots and everything else. But they are what they are, Don,
Yeah.
and it is
Yep.
what it is. They're
Yep.
a young team. They've had their ups and downs. I don't know that there's been a game this year where you knew they were going to come out and either be really good or be really bad. I think it's kind of been a surprise.
Yes.
The only games that really haven't surprised me maybe are the UND games.
The UND games, yeah.
Where you kind of go, they're probably going to play pretty well.
Yep.
You know, the combo of UND just not matching up well, not being very good, also being very young. By the way, you kind of go, all right, they got the advantage with Grant Nelson and Andrew Morgan.
But like them to see them blow the doors off Omaha, I didn't expect that. I expected them to win. I didn't expect them to be up like 33-9.
Well, I don't think any of
us.
us expected Omaha to just like not even want to play that
Compete?
day. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, so that was as much on Omaha. That was bad for them. That was a bad look. I don't know what was going on there. I didn't talk with Kyan Brown, the former NDSU assistant, after the game. I don't know what's going on, but that was a bad performance by Omaha.
And the teams on the road this year have been in the conference play, not been great. Obviously, Oral Roberts has beaten everybody. SDSU and NDSU are 3-4 on the road, which is all right. You take that. After that, St. Thomas 2-5, Western 2-4, Kansas City 3-4. That's not bad. The Roos have been way better than I thought. I thought after those guys moved on, they would move to the bottom half of the standings.
Yeah.
They've played better than that. USD 2-5, UND 1-6, Denver 1-8, Omaha 1-7.
Yep.
I mean, that's bad.
Yeah, those are bad teams. Yep. Summit League overall, like the Valley was last year in football.
Just kind of okay.
Overall down, other than the top team. And in this case, it's South Dakota State, which is not as good as it has been, although they're still obviously better than most in the league. But it's just a meh year for the Summit League.
Preposterous statement time is if Oral Roberts somehow goes unbeaten, but if they make the Summit League championship game and lose, do they get into the NCAA tournament?
Their net ranking's really high, and their KenPom ranking is really high, but no.
It's still a one-bid league.
I think if they don't win the championship, they're because their net ranking, I think the last time I looked at it, this was a couple weeks ago, it was like 60 or something. So it's
pretty good.
Right, but how many teams do they take in the tournament, though, Don? That's the problem. And there's auto bids and all of those things. And there's going to be some...
Don't sweat it. Win the games, right?
There's going to be some upsets in the major conferences that are going to...
Latest net rankings as of today, or yesterday, I'm sorry, 38 now.
Okay, all right. So that
38.
So that makes a difference. But I'll still say that, no, they won't get in just because it's the Summit League, although
they have no Quad 1 wins. They're 0-4 there against Quad 1 teams.
So it's the Summit League is the men's side is
sometime though. No, it's not.
No, why? Maybe if they
go
played
to 96.
3-on-5, and if the game is tied with less than 6 minutes left, the team ahead has to take a player off the floor. And then
get 10 points
the tallest player has to tie one arm behind his back, and the coach has to leave. And the players have to coach themselves. That'll get interested. I mean, yeah.
Oh, gosh. Thanks for coming by, man. Good to see you.
No problem.
Mike McFeely joining us each and every Tuesday here on The Big Show. We'll take a break. We'll start hour 2. Kyle and Emanuel by. We'll recap what we saw from the Super Bowl and a bunch more. That's coming up. We start hour 2 of Hot Mike. We'll be back right after this.
This is Hot Mike. Hot Mike. On the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
He's on the all-tape team day 3 version. Yeah, Bill and I, we were just talking about it. We love this player. Man, this guy makes plays.
Emanuel was in that backfield.
Kick is up and it's blocked. That's a live ball scooped up by North Dakota State. Kyle Emanuel takes it all the way down to the 5-yard line.
I remember I was getting recruited. Coach Bull told me, if you come here, I think you'll win a national championship. He never said anything about 4.
Great to see our guy Kyle Emanuel here in studio. A couple of emails to get caught up on. Dom, NFL is pretty much streaming with the move to YouTube TV for the NFL Sunday Ticket. Cable TV is dying. There's no doubt on that. It's going off our conversation we had earlier. I know you grew up playing baseball, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Do you even recognize what the Major League game is now from when you were a kid growing up and watching it and seeing what it is now?
Honestly, I don't watch it. I don't watch it nearly as much. No, I don't.
See, they lost you.
Yeah, I love baseball as a sport. I don't want to say I would sit down and watch full length games when I was a kid, but I definitely paid attention to it more as a kid.
Yeah.
I was, I loved all this. I mean, I kind of spoiled the Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa season. And there was there's a lot of good players now too, obviously, but that was a fun time. In the steroid era, which say what you want about it, it was exciting to watch.
It got butts in the seats and people to watch on TV. There's no doubt. Barry Bonds was must-see TV every time he came to bat. They don't have that right now. I love the game, but there's not a guy, even Mike Trout, who's one of the all-time greatest players in the history of the game. He's not a guy that I think Ohtani I would stop. But for average people, there's not a guy to do that. Stop what you're doing and watch this guy.
It's been a criticism of the MLB for a while now, is that they and whether it's the league, whether it's how they whatever, there's a million different reasons why, but they don't promote their stars as well, or their stars aren't promoted. People tune into the NFL to watch guys like Patrick Mahomes, to watch guys like Jalen Hurts. And the list goes on and on and on. And you could say the same thing about the NBA. The NBA is probably even more so than maybe than the NFL. People want to watch the stars. That's who everyone talks about. Baseball, it's just, for whatever reason, it's just not the same anymore. And it was like that when I was a kid. Or at least maybe I just felt like it was more, but it just doesn't have the same flair as it used to.
You had the best reaction when I asked you what you thought of the game. As a defensive guy, you said, well, it wasn't great defense that was played on Sunday. I think that's a perfect way to start this conversation, because the quarterbacks were, I thought, fantastic. But we had all heard about how great the Eagles' defense was. To that point, the Chiefs' offensive line, which should get more attention, and hopefully it will, was awesome, because Mahomes didn't get touched in the game on Sunday.
Yeah, we talked about it last week. Eagles had, I think, 78 sacks going into this game. They had, I think everyone on their defensive line had, close to 10 sacks or more going into this game. And I don't want to make excuses, but I said this to you before we went on air. I think the grass had played a bigger role than people are maybe talking. I know it was talked about.
You have a unique experience with this area, so you can actually shed some light on a bad field surface and playing conditions, how that can affect a game.
So and maybe you could bring in an offensive lineman, and maybe they would say the complete opposite. Kyle, you're crazy, but I've always thought it's harder to rush the passer on a slippery field than it is to block a passer on a slippery field. And the reason why, think about what an edge rusher has to do, what a guy inside. You have to play on the side of your cleats. You're creating angles. You're trying to lean into this guy. You're trying to, if you're trying to power rush him, you're getting on the side of your cleats. Even if you're speed rushing, you have to. We talk a lot about bending the hoop and getting around. You're constantly playing on the edges of your feet. Well, what's that going to lead to if it's a bad field? It's going to lead to a lot of slipping, where as an offensive lineman, I know I didn't play it, but they're trying to stay balanced. They're trying to be square. They're trying to get all cleats in the ground at all times, or when possible. They're also usually the bigger one. They're not having to push back as much. They're just having to stop. So again, maybe an offensive lineman comes in here and says, Kyle, you're crazy. Are you kidding me? It's way harder to block. But from my experience, when the grass is bad, it's, unless you just completely run the dude over straight down the middle, or you just beat him clean off the line, it's tough to rush the passer. And again, maybe it sounds like I'm making excuses, but I don't want to take anything away from the Kansas City offensive line. They still did a phenomenal job. 0 sacks. I don't care what the field is like. They still played well. But I think it was a factor in the game. And rightfully, they talked about it. It was talked about a ton throughout the game.
Well, and you saw it right after Kelsey scored. He biffed it right in the end zone. You're like, God, what what is right?
Kicker fell over on a kickoff.
It's not good. That was not good. And that was something from the game in Frisco that I remember was evident right when you guys went out for warm-ups. So I wonder if that was the same thing on Sunday when the guys went out there for warm-ups. Like, oh boy, this may not be very good.
This was exhibit A. So remember about, halfway through the season when everyone was coming out, NFL needs grass fields. NFL needs grass fields. Get rid of artificial turf. This is exhibit A, why I say No, I like
field
artificial
turf.
turf, and I know that the injury might be slightly more, but at least you know what you're getting.
You know the
it's
surface
consistent.
you're on. Yeah.
I feel, and it's not just a Super Bowl. I feel like we've seen this a lot in college national championship games and major bowl games.
Yep.
And I don't know what it is. The field looked pristine. It looked awesome.
Great until you got
but it obviously didn't hold up.
Yeah.
And this is not something that this is like it's just this one Super Bowl. Like this has happened before.
Yeah.
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but like I know there's been plenty of games before we see guys slipping.
In that stadium too, they've had it. The college national championship game with Oregon and Auburn. Same thing, same place. Like, okay, you got to figure this out. And the NFL's been really quiet on it, which tells you they know exactly that there was something really bad at that. Like, I have more of an issue with that than the call that happened at the end of the game.
Right. Same.
At least in my opinion.
Same.
You're seeing clumps of the turf come up, and Greg Olson pointed out right before the Butker kick to win the game that he was standing on the paint that this could happen again. Imagine if that happened.
And for those who have never played on a field where it's grass is painted, I mean, it completely changes everything about the thing. I mean, it gets matted down, it gets hard at times, it obviously can get slick. Fortunately, it didn't. That would have been pretty bad.
Oh, that would have
affected the field goal.
That would have been bad.
But I would tend to agree with you too. I know the call. Like initially, I thought it was a good call. I did initially, and then then you go back and you look at it and you're like, okay, well, at that point of the game, can you make that call?
Yeah. And
that brings up a whole nother argument. Like I know Tony Dungy. I saw him on Twitter. He said it's like a penalty is a penalty,
right?
Regardless. You can't just say, oh well, at this point of the game you don't call these, and early on in the game you do. A penalty is a penalty. So I don't know. I've gone back.
I agree with that.
I've gone back and fans will argue that for sure. But I've gone back and forth on that.
I mean, I heard as well that he should have been wearing white gloves. That would have been hard for the officials to call. Which I'm sure the Patriots probably did something like that. I'll throw them completely under the bus. How much did Bradbury diffuse this by saying he held him?
I think he diffused it a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
And maybe he just was trying not to get fined because you're not supposed to criticize the refs. But I think by him saying like, yeah, I held him. I was just hoping I got away with it. I think it diffused it a lot. But there's still people that are upset about it. And I get it. It's football. I think people are less upset about the penalty itself and more what it took away, right?
Because that's where I'm at with it.
We
were heading for an unreal finish.
It might have been a penalty, sure, but now you took the game's essentially over at that point.
Correct.
Where we were all, right when the Chiefs got the ball, I'm like, okay, perfect. 5 minutes, 40 seconds, or whatever it was. Mahomes is going to go down and score. We all know it's going to happen. Field goal, touchdown, doesn't matter. He's going to score. And like, okay, now you're giving a second-year starter. You're giving Jalen Hurts. You're giving him. Here we go.
2 minutes, right?
You got 2 minutes ish
to
go win a Super Bowl. Like that's after the game we saw. That's what everyone wanted to see.
You were heading for like the Bills Chiefs did the year prior. That's what you were hoping for.
Maybe an overtime,
right?
I think that's why fans were so upset because we felt like we got that stolen away.
A little cheated on that. I will say this: watching that play out, it shows exactly what if you don't have elite, and I mean elite quarterback play, you do not have a chance. Unless your defense is and the Eagle defense was elite. If you don't have that, I mean, you're miles away from winning in this league. Winning at that level in this league.
Correct. And even if you can find a way to win, you're not going to stay there, right? Like even if, like you say, you have the best running team. I mean, we kind of saw that with the 49ers, right?
Yep.
Well, it's a little different because they didn't have any quarterback. They literally didn't have a quarterback. But still, I don't know if they would have been able to make it all the way with Brock Purdy. I love what he was able to come and do, but like they had a phenomenal running game. They had a phenomenal defense. They didn't have the quarterback, and that's what can happen.
Gosh, it just shows for everybody else trying to get to that level. Like you look at certain teams, like the Vikings come right to mind. Vikings have elite individual talent at the wide receiver position, at the tight end position. They have nothing up front. Their line play lacks, I think, goodness there, and their quarterback is above average. But to me, it seems like the Vikes are miles away from being either one of those two teams, in my opinion.
Well, and this is why I think we've seen so many teams try and reach for that quarterback with the high ceiling, but or the high risk, high reward, like a Zach Wilson. Sorry to bring him up, but it's like, okay, we need to find this guy, and I think they keep trying to find the next Patrick Mahomes.
The Eagles and the Eagles did it with Hurts. I mean, Carson Wentz was the guy. They just gave Carson a monster contract, and the following offseason, after Wentz got hurt again, they drafted him. And I remember we were doing it on the show, like, what is this?
Yep.
And lo and behold, they got that one right out of the park on that one.
The funny thing is, I kind of felt the same way. Maybe this is why I'll never be a GM. I kind of felt the same way with the Eagles drafting Jalen Hurts. Like, what are they doing? The same way when the Chiefs initially drafted Patrick Mahomes as high as they did.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds crazy to say now, knowing what we know, but at the time, I'm like, you got Alex Smith, who's a solid,
who's humming,
Pro
who's playing
Bowler.
really well.
You're making the playoffs every year. You're winning the division every year, and you're not going to go add another piece. You're going to go add a guy that's probably going to sit on the bench. Like I kind of felt the same way, and it was the same thing with Jalen Hurts. Like you're not going to give Carson Wentz, some more weapons or things like that. And obviously, Howie Roseman and Chiefs General, their administration knew it more than I did.
Man, it's interesting to see the ones that work, how well that pans out, and the ones that don't. You're kind of like I look at the Chargers. Like, Herbert is a slam dunk. That was a great pick, and they still haven't built enough around him yet to make that jump up to be really, really good.
Well, it also, and I'm not trying to criticize Chargers coaches, but I think Andy Reid is elite.
Yep,
I really do.
That's a huge part of his coaching.
I honestly think, like, if Mahomes somehow doesn't play in that second half, I still think they had a chance. And then most people are like, what? No, there's no way. And I'm not saying they would have won, but like we saw when Chad Henne came in the divisional game, they marched right down the field and scored. And it's like, I know Patrick Mahomes is great, and he's arguably the greatest talent we've seen at quarterback ever. But you combine that with Andy Reid, and that's why you're getting the results that you are.
Let's take a break, come back. Actually got some Carson Wentz news that we'll talk about. The Colts have a new coach as well. We'll dive into some other football chatter with Kyle Emanuel here in studio. We'll do that when Hot Mike returns on a Tuesday morning. We're back after this. Welcome back, everybody. Tuesday morning edition, back with Kyle Emanuel here. So we're chatting just the never-ending wheel of the NFL. Now, it's funny because I think it's almost more exciting than the actual games is what happens now in the offseason.
Sometimes.
The NFL's got this monopolized, don't they, that as soon as the Super Bowl ends, well, the cycle doesn't stop of news because now we're ready to start with the Combine is 2 weeks away, then free agency, then the draft, then the schedule comes out, and then before you know it, we're back in camp again.
It's like a reality TV show,
really
right?
is.
You get all the drama. If you like the sports part, you can have that. And if you're more interested in some of the drama of the NFL, who's going to go where, and it's kind of like a dating show. Who's going to break up with who's going to stay together, and that's kind of what you get in the NFL offseason.
When you were still playing, did you watch the Super Bowl? It's like, you know what? I'm not there. I don't want to have anything to do with it.
I did, yeah. I actually went to some of the events a couple times when I was in Minneapolis and in San Francisco. So one of the times I think I watched it on a plane. There's been a couple times though I've missed it or missed parts of it. Or like we talked about, like if you're at a party with some people and it's on, but are you really watching it? So I think I've at least watched most of it every single year.
It's just I know for some it's like, you know what? I'm too close to this. We were your last year with the Chargers, you guys were a round away from playing for the AFC Championship. I have to imagine that was tough.
Yeah, that's how I was with regular season games. A lot of times, like I would kind of stay away, especially when I was playing. I didn't really watch the NFL much. Like Monday Night Football, I wouldn't watch it. I wouldn't watch it. Just try to get away from it, because that's what you do all day, every day. And sometimes I wish I would have watched more. You just never know what you're going to pick up. But it was just.
It's too much,
in the
right,
moment.
Matt?
It was
right.
just it was a
You're
little bit
living
too much,
it.
and I stayed away from it.
It's 24/7. I mean, you're literally in the building for 15, 16 hours a day some days, right?
During camp.
Yeah.
That's
enough. I do want to talk to you. I know this is tough, former teammate of yours, because Carson Wentz looks like his time is done in Washington. At least one ESPN report looks like that they're going to move on. I don't think that's too surprising, considering that at the last game of the regular season they started Sam Howell. The question is now, what's next? I mean, this is now a third starting job that'll be gone. The injuries have certainly racked up since the ACL tear. Then it was the back injury in 2018, the concussion, which I think is more lingering than most, that he happened in the playoff game of 2020. Now that they had the broken finger this year, because I think he was playing all right for Washington before he got hurt on that Thursday night game against the Bears. But the last 2 years, he has saved his worst game for when they needed him the most. The game against the Colts, or the game against the Jags when he was in Indianapolis, and the game against Cleveland this year where he threw 3 picks against Washington. I don't know if he's a starting quarterback anymore.
Yeah, look, as a friend, as a former teammate, I would love for him to find whatever's going to give him peace, whatever's going to give him happiness, to find a good situation. I thought he had that in Indianapolis, and I think he did too.
Yeah.
And I still don't like the way that ended.
Nope.
It is obvious. Like, he had a bad game.
And the Colts, by the way, are still looking for a guy too, by the way.
Well, then they go to Matt Ryan.
You're right.
It's just
Yep.
But again, that's a whole nother discussion. I thought he found it there in Indianapolis, and he obviously didn't, or they wanted to move on. And at this point, it's to be realistic, I think it would be a little bit surprising if he's still kind of given a starting role in the NFL. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible. I think there might be a team that is a little bit desperate, a little bit down, maybe a rebuilding year, and they're like, okay, here's a guy who's proven he's won games. He's essentially won a Super Bowl, even though I know he didn't play in it. Probably should have won an MVP. Is still relatively young in terms of being a quarterback, so maybe someone gives him a chance. But again, just being realistic about it, it's probably a backup role. If the Commanders do decide to move on from him, you would have to assume it's probably going to be a backup role somewhere. And I know that's not what he wants. I know how competitive Carson is, and I know how great of a person, great of a guy he is. And I still think I think he loved Indy personally. I think he really liked it there, and I think if he could have stayed there a couple years, if they don't fire Frank Reich, I think there could have been some good things that happened there. But unfortunately, that is the business of the NFL, and it didn't work out that way.
It's odd, and the injuries have certainly caught up. Like I mentioned, I think there's too much around it to whether it's the teammates, the locker room thing, and I know that's something that you never experienced in Fargo.
Yeah.
I never saw it in the time that I covered him, the 4 or 5 years he was here. That I don't know what to make of that, but it's not clicked, and I don't know. I can't put my finger on exactly why.
It's almost, and I don't want to simplify it to this, but it's almost like he's just had a case of some bad luck.
Yeah.
You talk about the year he probably wins MVP, he gets hurt.
Yeah.
He comes back the next year, gets another back injury.
Right.
Makes it to the playoffs, gets a concussion. And then, like we said, unfortunately has some of his worst games at the end of the year when his team needs him the most. And now, oh, by the way, everyone's kind of measuring him up against a season where he almost won the MVP. And they're like, okay, well, if you're not that, then you're not good
enough.
What
are you?
Yeah. And okay, so you're falling off. And it seems like it's just, again, it seems too simple at times, but it's almost like he's just ran into a lot of bad luck.
So let me throw some stats at you here on this. Just the 2019, played all 16 games that year, threw 27 touchdowns, 7 picks, had a completion percentage of 63%. That's really good. Yeah. And the Eagles made the playoffs, and then he got hurt. Jadeveon Clowney had a dirty hit, I'll say it, kneed him in the head after the play. He was concussed, and I think that lingered into 2020. I don't think, that's just my Dom Izzo sitting here. I don't think he was the same. Obviously, he had a dreadful 2020. His year in Indianapolis, 17 games, 27 touchdowns, 7 picks, completion percentage of 61%, QBR of 94.6. I mean, that's pretty good. 27-7.
And again,
how many teams would take that?
In his first year with the new team and a new organization,
right.
And I know how mad they were that they lost to the Jaguars and didn't make the playoffs. But again, I'll just go back and say it again. Like, I feel like you got to give him one more chance there. You traded for the guy. Like, he's got some familiarity with the coaching staff, but the owner didn't like him, and so they get rid of him. Now he's on his third new team in 3 years with the Commanders and gets hurt again. It's just I don't know. I know a lot of people won't feel this way, but obviously as a friend and a former team, like I feel bad for him because I know how talented he is, and I know I've seen other quarterbacks in the league, and he's just as talented as a lot of them,
and
if
how many
not
have gotten
more
recycled,
than all of them.
Right?
And think about some of the careers of average quarterbacks that have had good careers, and I would look at Kirk Cousins. Like in terms of, if you just looked at the two quarterbacks, like who do you say is more purely talented? Like I think almost everyone would say Carson in terms of just arm strength, mobility, athleticism. But you'd almost have to say Kirk Cousins in some ways has had a better career because he's been more consistent. He hasn't been injured, So if you feel bad for him, I do because I know how good his career could have been. And look, all things aside, he still had a really good career.
Yeah.
I mean, like we said, he almost won an MVP, was on a Super Bowl team. But it just feels like it could have been even more.
You made a great point on this before we wrap this up, that he's still being judged against 2017.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was phenomenal. He could not have, like, he was odds-on favorite. You were watching that from afar because you're still in the league then. Yeah. That year, yeah,
it wasn't
right.
fun.
Yeah, I mean, Philadelphia
tore
was
us apart. Yeah.
humming that
They
year.
were so good.
Yeah.
I remember coming up to him after the game. I was like, Carson, what did you do different? Like, you were good when I was your teammate, but like no one could sack him that year. He was just Houdini in the pocket. He was ducking under things.
Yeah.
No one could get to him, and when they did, it seemed like he bounced.
You give me an answer on that, by the way?
I don't remember. No, not really. He's like, I don't know. I just got better. It's like, hey, good answer. You know?
That's interesting to see how that's going to play out. And today we were talking to this. Derek Carr is likely going to get released by the Raiders to start this whole cycle of who's going to. You mentioned matchmaker, where everybody's going to go. It seems like him and the Saints might be a fit there. Obviously, A-Raj is out there with the potential that the Jets have inquired on that. I mean, this is, again, why it's as popular of a league as it is, because you have these stars that invariably go different places. It's going to be really
especially
interesting.
as of late, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember where there was so many quarterbacks that seem to be on the move, especially like high stake or big name quarterbacks that were on the move. And we saw it last year. Seems like we're going to see it again this year, especially obviously with Derek Carr being at least one of them. And if Aaron Rodgers moves, that's the biggest one of them all.
One last thing on Jalen Hurts before we go. That you look at this, and you've played the sport at the highest level. To have what happened with him, where he gets benched in the national championship for Tua Tagovailoa, right? He goes to Oklahoma, has a great season, gets nominated for the Heisman there, finalist there, then gets drafted, as we mentioned, goes behind Carson Wentz, sits, learns it, then becomes the starter, then takes his team to the Super Bowl. That's pretty good stuff, man. That for a guy like that, that's about as good as you can get.
I mean, you just feel good for the guy, right? Because he's had to overcome. I don't want to say he's had to overcome a lot, just because people get benched. People, they get
it happens
put
all the
behind
time,
it.
right?
It gets happened, but for him to remain resilient, to stay the course, to not lose doubt in himself, especially getting benched at Alabama. No, he actually stayed, I believe, the next year, and then transferred. And then he's a second-round pick, and everyone's questioning, okay, second-round pick, but can he actually lead a franchise to get in the Super Bowl and play really well?
He was
awesome. Really well. I mean, they didn't
really
lose.
good.
He was not the reason they lost that game. And obviously the future looks very bright for him and the Eagles as well.
Great to see you, man. Thanks for coming by. Appreciate the time.
Yeah,
good to see you. Kyle Emanuel, our NDSU All-American defensive end, of course, our broadcaster on Bison football as well. We'll take a break. We come back. Big night coming up tomorrow night for the Spud girls hockey team. Can they get to the state tournament? Haven't done that in a decade and a half. We'll visit with head coach Ryan Kraft when Hot Mike returns after this. Welcome back, everybody, on a Tuesday morning edition. Hot Mike, WDOI Extra, InForum.com. Reminder, the Spud boys hockey game we will have for you now this afternoon with the weather impending. The Roseau Moorhead game you'll see at 3:45 this afternoon on WDAY Extra at InForum.com. The final regular season home game for the Spuds. They wrap up the regular season Saturday with Hill Murray, but a biggie tonight against Roseau, which is a perfect segue because there's another big hockey game between Moorhead and Roseau on the girls' side tomorrow for the 8AA section championship. The Spud girls, after knocking off Brainerd on Saturday, are back there again trying to end a 17-year state tournament drought. As we welcome on back to Hot Mike, the Moorhead girls hockey head coach Ryan Kraft is good enough to join us here on a Wednesday morning. I know Saturday had to feel pretty good because Brainerd is the team that got you last year. What was the mood in the locker room after the game on Saturday evening? A 2-1 game. It's a good hockey game. Was that a sweating it out on the bench kind of game for you?
They work really, really hard, and they're just a very well-coached team. So we weren't surprised by, how the game took course, I guess you'd say. We're very, very fortunate that we found a way to get our power play working at the right time, and it came through for us.
Back in this game again for the second year in a row. How does the emotion of this, what do you think tomorrow night will feel as opposed to last year?
Well, obviously there'll be nerves. I'm just sitting here talking to you right now. I'm nervous, and not because I have a lack of confidence in my team. It's section hockey in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. But I think the girls are a lot more confident this year. They seem a lot more relaxed in practice. They feel really good about their game and the direction that they're headed. And, we just got to go up there and take care of business.
This is the game you want to be in, though. This is the game to get you to where you want to go. So I can understand why the nerves are, even for you on a Tuesday morning, where they're at right now.
Well, this is why you play hockey.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why you suit up every day and you work so hard during the season and in the off season is, is to compete in games like this. This is what makes it fun. And in my opinion, I think I remember back to my playing days. These were some of the funnest games I played in. I don't know if you remember the Elk River 4 overtime thriller my senior year. We beat Roseau my sophomore year to go to state. Junior year, I think it was the same. But they're just fun, exciting games, and they're always memorable.
Ryan, it's not that long ago that Spud girls hockey won 2 games all season long. Now, to be back in the section championship game for a second straight year, is this even surpassed your expectations of doing this quickly? Yes and no.
I guess there's kind of a 2-part answer to that. I think, I guess my goal coming in was to change the culture. It just seemed like girls weren't having a lot of fun playing hockey. And again, my opinion, but a lot of that has to do with the feel of improvement, the feel of getting better. And in order to do that, you have to work. You have to put in the time. You have to commit yourself in order to get better. So I guess from that standpoint, no, because the girls have done an outstanding job grabbing onto the messages our coaching staff has tried to send and to really change the culture on what it means to be a girls hockey player in Moorhead. No, I guess would be the answer to that first part. And yes, because anytime you have a turnaround like this quickly, it's a surprise. I came in with a 4, 5, 6 year plan thinking that, by then we would be relevant in this section and we would be, close to being relevant in the state. But again, a credit to the girls. We have a phenomenal group this year. They put the work in, they put the time in. They're committed to the game. They're committed to each other, and they're committed to their goal of getting back to a state tournament.
Olivia Dronon's a really special player. She's going to play Division I hockey at Bemidji State. Where have you seen her game go to now she's a Division I hockey player?
Well, she's the type of player that can control the pace of a game. I mean, she has that ability to slow it down when she needs to attack when she needs to. I think she's done a really good job of enhancing her ability to read a game, read a play, read pressure, and then make the appropriate decision. And she's done a phenomenal job this year of keeping her game much more simple and making sure that she takes care of the D side of the puck first.
How does she handle, too, knowing she's going to get everybody's, not necessarily best shot, but knowing defenders are keying on her heading into this season? Did she get the sense that there was going to be some extra set of eyes on her all season long?
I tried to steer her away from that attention as best I could. Just get her to focus on just playing her game and not worry about all those external factors that happen with teenage kids. But to say that, I mean, we decided to put her and Kate Kozabud together, and ever since we did that, they've just been a dynamic pair.
Bria Holm had both goals for you on Saturday. What kind of leadership and tenacity she brought to the team?
Well, I mean, you said it. She brought everything she could that third period. I mean, she played like a senior that wasn't ready for her season to be over. And she's another player that with one shot, like, she can change the course of a game. I mean, she shoots the puck so well. She's got good speed. She's very, very good in the battle areas, in the corners and in front of the net. And she just has that ability to carry the team on her back when she needs to.
I'm contractually obligated to ask about the standard broadcaster. How hard is it to beat a team 3 times in a season? But you have beaten Roseau both times, but they haven't been easy. They've been tough games. I know you expect that tomorrow in a different rink. How does that manifest itself, I guess, differently, Ryan, when you're playing a team for the third separate time?
Well, they know us better. We know them better. And we're more familiar with our opponent, like they're more familiar with us. So, nobody really expects any surprises. They know how we play. We know how they play. We know where their strengths are. They know where our strengths are. So there's just no surprises. And it's, it comes down to the team that really wins the little battles, that wins the race to the puck, that execute the best. And honestly, the team that plays the loosest and the freest and just goes out and has a game will be the team that wins.
I'm also the captain obvious question is the first goal important in a game like this or not so much?
I think so. I mean, I think in a game like this, if you're fortunate enough to get that first goal, I think it calms the nerves. But we've kind of had that mindset all season long that we don't play the scoreboard. We just play our game. And whether we score the first goal or we get that first goal scored against us, or a ref makes a bad call in their favor, or he makes a call in our favor, we don't change the way we play. We try to play the same way every time, every minute of the ice. And we feel really comfortable that if we do that and play our game, we'll be on the winning side more often than not.
So I was doing some digging on last night to get ready for our interview, and I saw you tweeted this out at the end of just not that long ago. That the team, I don't know if it was a prank that had your face on a shirt. We got it up on my computer here. Tell us about this and how this came about.
Well, it actually started 4 years ago when I took over. We allow the seniors to create a theme for the season.
Yep.
And on a T-shirt, we usually write that theme with our Spuds Girls Hockey logo. And the theme that first year was the start of a new era. And of course, my assistant coaches started the prank with that picture on a T-shirt that said "Start of a New Era." Well, one of our trips to the cities, he was wearing that T-shirt in the hotel, and the captains were like, "We got to get a T-shirt made up for Coach with something like that, just to prank him some morning at the workout." So I show up for workout probably a couple weeks back, and there was. There was 20 some odd girls in a white T-shirt with my big mug on the front, and it was humbling, it was funny, it was embarrassing, and it was just a great bonding experience.
That is a great hockey flow. What year is that photo from? Do you know?
It's got to be late 90s, early 2000s. I think I was playing in Kentucky at the time for San Jose's American League affiliate, and that was the hairstyle back then for hockey players.
By the way, we had Ryan on last year. I asked him about his Kentucky hockey experience. Podcast that, it's fantastic because I didn't know anything about the age that experience. It's a good stuff there about that. Just before I let you go, just to be in this spot again. When will you appreciate that? Is before the game, during warm-ups, during the game, say, boy, this is where everyone wants to be. We are here. We're a win away from going to the state hockey tournament.
Well, I think I'm just going to take it all in, minute by minute, and just enjoy the whole night, the whole process. Enjoy watching my team compete, and hopefully with a little bit of luck and a couple bounces, we get the outcome that we want. But I'm gonna enjoy every minute.
Do you pace during the games on the bench, or you stand still? Like, what's the mood for you on the bench?
My coaches give me grief all the time about how I can't sit still between periods. Like, I just constantly pace. So it's kind of one of my things. I'm on the telephone a lot, obviously, as a coach, and my wife gives me grief because I can't sit still. I can't sit down and have that conversation. I constantly pace about the house. So I guess I have a nervous demeanor by nature, and I'm sure that's going to continue tomorrow night.
It's great to see you, man. Thanks so much for the time. Good luck tomorrow night. I know you have a bunch of people cheering you on back here, and hopefully we can do this again next week, okay?
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for the good luck wishes.
Appreciate it. Ryan Kraft, Moorhead girls hockey coach, joining us here this morning. The Spuds and Roseau coming up tomorrow night from Thief River Falls, 7 o'clock for the 8AA championship. The winner moves on to the state hockey tournament. The Spud girls have not been there since 2006. They'll try to end that drought tomorrow night. We'll have highlights of that at our news tomorrow at 10. We'll take our final break, come back, wrap up this Valentine's Day edition, get you ready for a busy Sports Tuesday before the weather turns. We'll do that when Hot Mike wraps right after this. All right. Wrapping up the show here on this Valentine's Day edition. Hope everybody is able to enjoy with their loved ones, wherever they are. If it's boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, however, doggo, whoever you so choose to enjoy a little bit of that today. The Jack Man is having his big Valentine's Day party at his daycare today. He was really, really excited about that. So he got some Spider-Man Valentines. He was excited to give those out. So I can't wait for the to hear all about it later this afternoon, how that goes. So it's different. I know everything's different, obviously, when you have a kid. But this day is completely different now because he's super excited about it. I can't wait to hear about it. That's coming up when I get home today. I can't wait on Valentine's Day. Let's get you ready for what to watch before we get out of here on this Tuesday. Again, if you missed it earlier, the Spud-Roseau game will be on earlier today. It was supposed to be at 6 o'clock with the weather coming. It's moved up to a 3:45 start. We will have that game for you here tonight on Extra. I should say this afternoon. So a matinee for everybody here between the Rams and the Spuds as they close out the regular season, and still plenty up for grabs there in 8AA. So Sam Getzinger and the GOAT, the Hall of Famer Dean Wilson, will have the call of that coming up 3:45 today right here on Extra. Big-time hoops game tonight. And it's funny, it's in the Big East, and I was watching the 30 for 30, the Requiem for the Big East. If you've not seen that one, find it and watch it. If you love college hoops, that is mandatory viewing, especially for someone of my age and where I grew up. I grew up in the Big East with Syracuse and Providence and Georgetown and St. John's and Seton Hall and Villanova and Boston College and Pitt. That was the Big East. It's not Creighton in the Big East, but yet here they are, ranked 18th in the country against 24th ranked Providence, 6 o'clock tonight on Fox Sports 1. That'll be a good game tonight in the quote-unquote the Big East. I still shake my head at that. It's not that. It was Villanova against Georgetown, Georgetown against Syracuse, Providence against Seton Hall, UConn against Georgetown or Nova or Boston College. Then they started adding other teams in. You know, they brought in Rutgers into the Big East, and West Virginia was in the Big East. And then, now it's, you need a map to figure out everybody who's in the conference now. There's my old man rant for the day. But that's a good one tonight. Also a good one as we near the end of the first half of the NBA season. The Celtics and the Bucks tonight, 6:30 on TNT. You look at the Eastern Conference standings as we start the day. Boston's in first. Milwaukee's in second. The Bucks have won 10 games in a row. They're on fire, is Giannis's team. That should be a fun one tonight. As you look, these are the up-to-date standings in the Eastern Conference standings. Right now, Boston a half game ahead of Milwaukee. Then there's Philadelphia, Cleveland. The Nets still there, despite the fact they traded away their entire team. Then Miami and the Knicks. The Knicks in the play-in round right now. Like what the Knicks have done. We'll see what happens in the second half. But that should be a fun game tonight with the Celtics taking on the Bucks on TNT. Also, as we mentioned off the top of the show, the EDC hockey tournament begins tonight with the quarterfinal games. Oh, you guys are all over this. With these games are all at home arenas tonight. And it's interesting, by the way, they're not doing a doubleheader in Grand Forks. They haven't played two separate arenas. One at Eagles Arena, where Red River is the top seed. We saw them win the number one seed last week when they beat Davies on the game of the week. We'll play Devil's Lake. Cheyenne will be at North tonight. That's at the Coliseum. That'll be a great old venue there. Davies at Central at the Purple Arena. And then at the Farmers Union Rink is West Fargo and South. Everybody moves on to the Purple on Friday, but then you're in loser-out games and have to win. The others, of course, playing in the EDC semifinals, which will come up Friday with the EDC championship slated for Saturday afternoon at Purple Arena there. So that's the up-to-date bracket. We'll update you on that tomorrow on the show. Also tomorrow on the show, David Richmond will join us, North Dakota State men's basketball coach. We hope so, as they're traveling, heading to Kansas City for their matchup with the Roos coming up on Thursday night. A biggie there for NDSU, as we detailed earlier in the show, knowing what's at stake going down the home stretch. So we'll preview that coming up on the show as well tomorrow. So looking forward to that. We got to go. Thanks to our guests today, to Mike McFeely, Kyle Emanuel, and Ryan Kraft. If you've missed any of the show, of course, you can podcast it like you can each and every show. Our whole library is available at InForum.com. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there. Stay warm, stay safe. You're driving around. The weather's going to get nasty. And we'll see you back here tomorrow on Hot Mike on WDAY Extra and InForum.com. Have a great Tuesday, everybody.